We are in the Mojave Trails National Monument at a feature called Bonanza Springs. The springs here are the largest source of water in around 1,000 square miles of the Mojave Desert in California. They're invaluable for wildlife, both migrating and resident. They allow animals and plants that could not otherwise survive in the arid desert to make a living, and the spring flows year-round. It's incredibly important for wildlife and for the ecosystem. Bonanza Spring has been around for a long time. It's been wet here for thousands of years, pretty much continuously since the last ice age, and we can tell that because there are animals here like red-spotted toads that could not have survived an extended period of dry, and it's unlikely they got here from somewhere else. So it's clear that this place has been an oasis in the desert for a very, very long time. It's one of the driest places in the world, the area that surrounds us here, and so this oasis would have been incredibly important to native people coming through who would have relied on it not only for water but also for the occasional bit of game and for cultural and ceremonial purposes. We also know that this was used extensively after European contact, in that miners were here and they relied on the water. When the railroad came through, the water was piped down to the railroad line down the hill to help the steam engines function. It's just been quietly a very, very important place for thousands of years and continues to be to this day. Cadiz Company claims that when they start pumping from their property, which is about 12 miles in that direction, that their pumping of the aquifer won't affect Bonanza Spring. What they claim is that Bonanza Spring is a separate system, that all the water in Bonanza Spring is fed through rain and sometimes snow falling in Bonanza Spring's watershed. Well, you can see Bonanza Spring's entire watershed. It's just this little 60 acre or so basin, a little tiny canyon in the Clipper Mountains. With that small a watershed, it's hard to imagine how Bonanza Spring could exist. Bonanza Spring has a lot of water flowing through it. All that water flowing out would have to come into this tiny little watershed, and it's dry here. About 100 years ago, there was an area that was very, very close by, Baghdad, California, where there was no precipitation for more than a year. And that was only unusual because there was somebody there to measure the no precipitation. It's incredibly dry here, and there is no way that Bonanza Spring could be subsisting on just local rainfall. It has to be fed from some much larger source somewhere else. And the only larger source that we know of is the aquifer that Cadiz wants to pump water out of to sell to Southern California cities. So we're convinced that Cadiz's pumping threatens to lower the water table that supplies Bonanza Spring. And once that water table starts lowering beneath Bonanza Spring, even if we stop pumping immediately, it's going to continue to drop, drying up the spring and dooming the wildlife that depend on it.